you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche and after After 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. And this apparently is goalie trade frenzy day, Pierre. Two big goalie moves in the NHL. We knew there were some goalies that could be on the move, and it seems that it has started here as the Stanley Cup Final goes on deep into June. GMs, I guess, have got a little impatient, so they're starting to make some moves. Just your thoughts, Pierre. I'll start with the most recent one. Darcy Kuemper goes to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Just your reaction to that.
Well, LA gets a lot of money on the cap. They get about $3.5 million on the cap, just going off the top of my head. It'll be an interesting combination with Darcy Kuemper and David Riddick. Cam Talbot is obviously out, so I would say for LA, was doing it when the trade happened. I was looking at the center ice position. So Kopitar, Philip Deneau, this is a huge opportunity for Alex Turcotte. Blake Lizotte is there, and they got a guy in the American Hockey League, Tyler Madden, who played at Northeastern. His father, John, won Stanley Cups in the NHL with New Jersey and also with Chicago. He's a good player. He's a legit prospect. How much did they lose from Dubois? Not much. They probably gain. Now, is Darcy going to be enough to get him over the top as a number one? He did it in Colorado. He didn't do it in Washington. So this is going to be interesting because you got a new coach in there, Jimmy Hiller.
Yep. Another
coach in there, DJ Smith, who knows players. I worked with DJ. DJ knows players. He's good at that. So you got a lot going on there. There had to be a disconnect with Dubois. There had to be for LA. On the other side of it, when you look at Washington, when you lose Nicholas Backstrom and you lose Evgeny Kuznetsov in the same year, basically, I don't care how deep you are at center, you are in trouble. Is Dylan Strome a good player? He is. Is he a number one center? He probably isn't.
Right.
Is he elite too? Yeah, he's really good too. So everything in their lineup kind of gets pushed down now. Nick Dowd, who we thought would be traded by them in Washington, wasn't. And I think part of why they didn't is they realized they're not deep enough at center. One guy that's had an amazing finish to the year and has done really well in Hershey is Hendrix Lapierre.
Yes.
If he's not on their team next year, I'll be shocked. I've been watching the American Hockey League playoffs. He's been really good.
Yeah.
Now, I know they're down 2-1 in their series, but he's been good. So there's some stuff there for what. Now, where does Dubois fit in? Does he fit in as a 2? Does he fit in as a 3 and then push everybody down? I don't know. This is a big question for them because he got a lot of contract time at big dollars. $8.5 million. It's big.
Pierre, I know it's not directly connected, but when you trace the lineage of this trade, you're looking at the Kings basically essentially wind up with Darcy Kuemper for Dubois, Gabriel Velarde, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and a 2023 pick. Look, I'm a fan of Rob Blake. I like the things he's done. I like him as a person. But if I'm Kings fans right now, I'm going to be saying, I don't know about that.
So the optics aren't good.
That's what
I'll cede you that. The optics are not good. But sometimes when you make a mistake, it's better not to penalize yourself by increasing the mistake. So the way they sell this is we've got a guy that won a Stanley Cup as a goalie. He played in the West. He played in Minnesota. He played in Arizona. He played in Colorado. So he knows the West. We need a goalie. We don't have anybody internally that we think can be a starter. And we're getting almost $3 million on the cap. So they'll be a cap team. They will. They'll spend. They'll go out and spend. They will, because they know what the guys down the road in Anaheim are doing.
They're coming.
They are, and you know what? I'm gonna clap right now for San Jose. Okay.
Good segue. I was gonna go there.
Gonna clap for them. Yesterday on the show, the big news was Barclay Goodrow was put on waivers.
Correct.
What did we say on the show?
Well, you specifically said, Pierre, that San Jose would be a good fit in the sense that He's familiar with it. And more importantly, he could come in as a good mentor, on-ice type coach, veteran presence for Macklin Celebrini when he arrives. So, Pierre, what do? They go out and claim him, but they weren't done with adding character there, were they?
No, Ty Dellandrea is good. So I was looking at a breakdown of their roster today. So think about a fourth line of Barclay Goodrow, Nico Sturm, who's a really good big checking center, and Ty Dellandrea. So now, if you're Ryan Warsofsky, the new coach in San Jose, you can go into any building. Now, I don't know how adept or lacking in experience he is running an NHL bench, because I don't believe he's ever done that. He'll figure it out, I think, because he's got enough reps at the American League level and he's got enough reps at the East Coast Hockey League level. That's pro hockey. I don't care what anybody says. You're still getting reps. He now can go in and actually put those guys against another team's top line and shut them down. This is a big step forward for San Jose because they're not overly stacked with defense.
No.
So you need to have those kinds of checkers. So I actually salute them. I would have been upset if they hadn't put a claim in on Goudreau.
Yeah.
I really would have.
Right.
Because it's everything. So now you can go to Will Smith and say, you're going to be insulated. You can go to Macklin after you draft him and say, maybe you're thinking about going back to BU, but you don't have to, because we got this guy and we got this guy and we're not done dealing yet.
I was just going to say, I don't think they're done either.
No, I don't either. So I really commend Mike for doing this. And I think they knew what you and I and a lot of fans saw. We're not blind. You know, we like a lot of people there. But I'm just telling you, where it was going halfway through this year, it was a disaster. Yeah. It was a disaster. And to their credit, they realized this, we can't do this again.
No.
And so they've changed it. So I was so happy for them today and their fans. It's a good job by San Jose.
Yeah. And look, I know that, we had a lot of Sharks fans were not happy with our honesty, our brutal honesty about our evaluation of their team and where they were headed. You already referenced it there halfway through the year. Colleague Xing Pang went on his podcast and kind of debated what they needed to do. And this was one of the things you insisted on them doing, Pierre, was they need to bring in defensive forwards, good two-way guys, and character, and guys to help along the youth. And it appears as they went and started to evaluate and look towards the offseason, they identified that as well. Yeah. So good on them.
I give Mike Greer a lot of credit on this. Now, it's not all going to be roses this year. No. But it's a big step forward in their development. Now those kids have a chance to go into Edmonton, to go into Vancouver, to go into LA, to go into Vegas, to go into Colorado. I'm talking about Western hotspots where they're going to have to go into Anaheim, which I think will be an improved team. They're not going to be overwhelmed. They're not going to get overrun. They're going to lose a fair bit. Now they're going to lose with some dignity. Yeah. And they're going to learn. And then a year from now, we'll be talking about this could be a team that's going to make the playoffs. For sure. Well, we will get back to that and some other moves that went down today. Lots of stuff happening, starting to kick in as we get closer to the draft next week. We'll get back to all that, though, because we are now going to be joined by our guest today, Hall of Fame hockey scribe Michael Farber, joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Michael, how are you, my friend?
I'm well, Jimmy. Yourself?
Good. Good to see you.
You just got off the golf course. Look at him.
That was a day or two ago, Pierre. So.
Too hot for that today, eh, Mike?
Yeah, a little hot today for old guys like me.
Oh, yeah, the old guy. Yeah. Hey, listen, the Scarlet Knight never gets old.
That's right.
Just gets rusty.
You two have a big day coming up next week. The announcement will be made for the new Hall of Fame inductees. How exciting of a time of year is this for you, Michael?
Well, I've been off the committee for a couple of years now, but it's like the mafia. They drag you back in. So actually, I will be on the committee this year. One of our members couldn't make the meeting, so they asked me to step back in. But it is a very exciting time. And Pierre, by the way, has been a great addition to the committee, at least in the time I was there. I don't know if you've been messing up since I left, Pierre, but while I was there, you were a valuable member of what was going on. It's very exciting because one of the things I would always say to myself and occasionally to others is we are changing people's lives. We have to take this incredibly seriously. If a player is inducted as an honored member of the Hall of Fame, I mean, that's life-changing for so many of these men and women. And we have to respect that and take it with all due seriousness. And I believe we do. And that's why I was proud to do my 15 years, and I'm happy to fill in this year.
I'm so happy you're going to be there. I don't know if you'd be able to sit with me like I used to sit next to you and just garner all the information, but got a chance to be a great class, Michael. It really does. Got a chance to be a really good class.
Yeah, it does. And I feel that way almost every year, Pierre, because there tends to be, because of the nature of the rules and the amount of people eligible, not everybody gets in on a first shot. And there tends to be what I imagine hockey fans would think of as a backlog of worthy players. And so even if there isn't a sexy name among the first year eligibles, there's some great players, great players. And quite often we're not, choosing merely a great player. We're choosing among great players. And it's a weighty job. I can honestly say I wasn't sad when my 15 years were up because it was a lot of work. At least for me, that's how I approached it, and a lot of research. And, I've had to go back into it again this year, and that was great after a couple of years respite. But I don't know anyone on that committee who hasn't taken it seriously.
Me neither. I mean, it is an amazing honor to be on there. And what Michael said, Jimmy, just for the people out there, he's so spot on. Because I will tell you, I don't know one person that takes being on that committee for granted. And Joe Sakic is on the committee now. And Joe Sakic's a Hall of Fame player. Joe Sakic's one of the top players that ever played his position. He's a multiple Stanley Cup winner. He's an Olympic medal. He's everything. You name it, Joe Sakic is that guy. You should see how much work he puts in to be prepared. It's really spectacular to watch. And Michael knows what I'm talking about. He's not the only one. Most everybody on there is doing their work. But just to see a star like Joe or Luke Robitaille get down in the dirt and roll around and get ready, it's pretty cool. It's really cool.
Good stuff. Michael, well, one player that's currently playing in the Stanley Cup Final that we know won't be a hard decision to induct into the Hall of Fame someday in the future is simply putting on a show right now. Connor McDavid has taken it to another level. I know you've seen so many amazing players over your time as a hockey writer and broadcaster, and I'm wondering, when you're watching this right now, does it take you back to different eras or certain players, and what's been going through your mind as you've watched this unravel here in this final?
Well, I'm going to take you back to November 6th, 1966, the first time I saw Bobby Orr at the Boston Garden. I bought a scalp ticket, paid $5. It was a $2.50 ticket. 100% markup. It's a lot of money. Sat end arena at the Garden upstairs, and for 2.5 hours I sat there with my mouth open because I'd never seen anything like it, and indeed no one else had to that point. So there are things that McDavid does with his skating,
yes,
that remind me of Orr. Obviously a different position. Orr has the puck, or had the puck, a lot more. Obviously he would run the power play. He'd be the power play at times. So there is an Orr-esque vibe with his skating and his creativity. That would be the initial comparison because of the skating. He's such a different player than Gretzky, and Pierre coached against Gretzky, obviously, and coached Lemieux. But I don't know if he's like a microprocessor, and in that way, it's a little bit like Gretzky. He just seems to process the game at a faster rate than other people. So I'm really happy that you, Jimmy, appreciate him in real time. Because sometimes, we get critical of this or that, but we are watching one of the best ever to do it. And the reason you probably fell in love with sports and I fell in love with sports, and one of the reasons Pierre played sports is for greatness and to appreciate greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching Barry Sanders and just saying,
Oh,
wow, look at this. And Connor McDavid is doing, look at this stuff. And if we can just sit back, regardless of where the series is right now, and say, man, we've seen something that will stay with us forever.
Yeah.
You talked about Bobby Orr, and I couldn't agree more, Michael. When I was a kid growing up in Montreal, Guy Lafleur was that guy for me, just because of what he could do with his speed, his playmaking, his work habits, and that lethal shot coming down the right side. Is it fair to say, Michael, or am I overreaching here, that Connor McDavid is already in the top 5 players of all time debate? Is that fair or unfair?
Well, I don't do those debates, as you know, Pierre. That's for people far smarter than me and people with far more time left in their lives than I have. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the great players we've ever seen, certainly he is in that discussion. Yeah. And, there are probably 2 players or maybe a third, if you count Crosby and Ovechkin currently in that discussion. And I can't sort them out. I wouldn't want to sort them out. I just know I had a visceral sense of awe that I never had with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean he was better than Gretzky, but he was different. And we all have our favorites. Willie Mays died. And yeah, I mean, an extraordinary player, but ours was a Brooklyn family.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, yeah, Mays is good, but he's no Duke Snyder, right? Of course, he was more than Duke Snyder. But my favorite player was Hank Aaron. And I was resentful that in all-star games, you had Clemente, Aaron, and Mays, and they made Aaron, who was a right fielder, play left field because of Clemente. So I didn't like Clemente because what I'm saying in a long-winded way is we all bring our own biases to this, and I'll let you guys sort out who the greatest players of all time are, but I think McDavid is safely among the greatest.
No, that's all, and I'm agreeing with you. The one thing, and I told Jimmy before we came on, Michael, I think what's changed for a lot of these younger guys, and you talked about Sidney and you talked about Alex coming in the league. I think McKinnon eventually will be in that discussion as well. There's no red line. So the guys that we grew up watching, whether it was Orr, whether it was Lafleur, whether it was Beliveau, all the greats, Esposito, how would and I don't know this answer, but I'm going to ask the question. How does their game translate to the no red line, the 2-line pass? Because I think that makes McDavid better. I think it makes McKinnon better. I think it makes Crosby better. I don't know how those star players from yesteryear would have translated to that.
Well, Lafleur would have translated brilliantly.
I agree with him.
Because, I mean, look at the defenseman moving the puck on his teams in Montreal. I mean, no question. And you open up to players, McKinnon you mentioned, with his skating ability, and McDavid. Esposito, probably not so much. But it's a question I've never really thought about, Pierre.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, Michael, in your years, whether it's covering or Gretzky, Lemieux, or any of the greats, if you ever had a chance to sit down and just talk to a teammate about what it's like being a teammate on the ice, watching what us fans are watching, just being up close and trying to react to the greatness that they're part of.
Yeah, and the first time I did that, I would think would have been in the late 70s, early 80s, and the subject was Michael Bossy, who those Islander teams were fabulous because not only were they great at what they did, but they could explain what they did. They were really smart guys on those teams, and the Bournes and the Nystroms, and they were just great fun to be around. So I asked about the Bossy shot, in particular, and how he could score so well. And, and Chico Resch, there were insights there. And yeah, because two rules in sports writing. One, always go to the losing locker room or dressing room. Stories are better. And two, don't ask a player about himself. Ask a teammate about himself, because guys, especially in hockey, don't want to brag or talk about themselves or maybe reveal too much, something they might view as proprietary in their game. But if you go to teammates, and that's where you find out the information.
Good stuff.
I mean, that's a good tip for you.
Yeah.
You do go into both dressing rooms. I know you work it hard, but that's really good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. It's good stuff. You look right now, though, are there any other players? Pierre mentioned McKinnon. Are there any other players that have sort of come out above the rest and brought you back to yesteryear like McDavid does as well?
One, certainly McKinnon's teammate, Cale Makar. He's not going to win the Norris and probably shouldn't win the Norris this year. But if you ask me who the best defenseman is, to me, it's Cale Makar, and it's obvious. He just passes the eye test. And he will be the best defenseman in the NHL for the next however many number of years. He's just that good, in control of the game. And if I were going to pay, which I don't have to do, to see anybody play, Makar and McDavid would be the two players. Hey, NHL games are expensive, right? And I don't want to tell anybody how to spend her or his money. But if you're going to spend money, if you're going to invest your money and your time, those would be the two players I would plunk down some hard-earned cash to watch.
Sure. I can't wait to see them on Hockey Canada together in these upcoming international tournaments.
Well, not so fast, Pierre. You want to explain about Makar? And
in fact, they don't have goaltending?
No, 2018, the investigation. He was on that team.
Oh, that's right.
And he has not been cleared. But he is one of the group. But I suspect in time for the Four Nations, whatever it's called, I think he'll be okay. So
this is one for you, and I don't want to go political. What's your take on not having Russians in international events right now?
I don't have a problem with it. Zero problem with it. It's because it's been state sponsored, the cheating. And if you're representing the state, that's on you. What's a very difficult question, and I've been wrestling with this, is we enter a year where Ovechkin certainly has an opportunity to pass Gretzky. Agreed?
Yes.
No guarantees that he does.
He has an opportunity.
Yeah, he's got the opportunity. So how do you approach this? I wrestled with this when I did something for TSN on Ovechkin's 800 goals. If you go back and look at Ovechkin and maybe start with 2008 with the listen to me, Russian seizure of South Ossetia and Abkhazia that belonged to Georgia. And Ovechkin had no problems with that. In 2014, with Crimea, the incursion into Crimea, he was actively cheering it. In 2017, Ovechkin was the or a front man for Putin team. He is a Putinista. And certainly, I don't think his feelings have changed given his social media. Putin has been on his social media as an avatar, or whatever those things are called. So how do we deal with that? On a personal level, I've been great with Ovechkin right from his rookie year. We had dinner together in New York when he had 150 words of English and I had probably 10 of Russian. I'll tell you a story. My daughter, who knew some Russian, wrote him a note. he read it. He says, "Get her on the phone." And they got on the phone. Now we're in Turin. A while later, he sees me in the mix zone, comes over and says, "How's your daughter?" On her 18th birthday, Washington was in Montreal, staying at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel. On the day of her birthday, I brought her over, and she and Ovechkin chatted for 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we've had a really great relationship.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's something to be dealt with. So I have been thinking about this, and you guys are smarter than I am, so maybe you can talk me off of this. So the way to write about Ovechkin now is to not write about Ovechkin in this sense. Wayne Gretzky, 25 years after his retirement, remains the most important, the most impactful person in hockey, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And one other layer to that is Ovechkin's chase for Gretzky's number. It just reminds us more about Gretzky, and of course we see him on TV and everywhere else. His importance is not diminished. And I can't think of any other athlete in any other North American sport like that. I mean, Michael Jordan is not the most important person in basketball. Whoever, Barry Bonds or Mark McGuire, are not the most, home run hitters in '98. They're not the most important people in baseball. So Gretzky, this is one other way that Gretzky lives on. So I'm trying to formulate something where I use Ovechkin to once again write about Gretzky. So I'm open to your ideas.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're going with that. I like what you're saying about Gretzky too, and I guess I'll kind of segue into that. He is front and center again right now. What's been your thoughts on Wayne becoming a media face for the NHL broadcast in the States?
I think he's been great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's tapped into a sense of humor. He's done enough work, getting back to what Pierre and I were talking about earlier, so he doesn't look lost in anything. He's current. He's always been hockey savvy, knows the environment. So yeah, it's the kind of thing that, okay, let's see what Tom Brady does when he gets on Fox. We'll see, if he does the work and translates and lets himself have a good time.
Good stuff, Pierre.
That was good. That was so good. I love how thoughtful Michael is. I do. I appreciate the well thought out ideology. It's phenomenal. Michael, you talked about all these great players, and I totally see to you on all these things, but here's one that I wanted to ask you about. The Patrick Roy situation. I know he's the head coach of the New York Islanders. Did the Montreal Canadiens make a mistake never bringing him back into the fold?
Well, Patrick takes up a lot of space. And if he couldn't function in a amiable or amicable way with his teammate in Colorado and a friend, it's a tough thing to do. He seems to have done good things on the island. You would have a better, I'm not there. I don't know you, Pierre. You're a lot closer to that than I am. Is he a good hockey coach? I remember Memorial Cup where I thought he outcoached Teddy Nolan. Mm-hmm. So I would think so. I knew him as a smart hockey guy. And so should he be coach of the Montreal Canadiens? I mean, there's a portion of the fan base in the city would say, yeah, great. But sometimes a franchise doesn't need drama. Mm-hmm. And we would have had a lot of drama in Montreal. This franchise is pretty good at drama anyway, but I think it would have been over the top. Very sharp hockey brain. And if you look at Lou Lamoriello's history and his connection to Montreal, and remember he he played minor league baseball in the province of Quebec. And he and I, for whatever reason, we've triangulated between New Jersey and Providence and Quebec. And so we all have this interconnection that we talk about whenever we see each other. But if you look at all the people he hired, from Jacques Lemaire and Jacques Laperriere and Pat Burns, there was always a connection because he had such a great admiration for the people who came through the process here. And that's why I'm not surprised at all that he would have said Patrick Waugh.
Jacques Lemaire still works for Lou Lamoriello on Long Island, so I think he played a role in Patrick being there. And Larry Robinson, was another one of those hires that Michael knows about from Montreal. So I agree with that. Lou told me once in his office, back in the old days when they played at Continental Airlines Arena, not the Brendan Byrne, Michael, that you know, but the Continental Airlines Arena. He once brought me in his office and he said, Pierre, there's two teams that I use as role models for how I build my team. Really? Who are they? He goes, one, the Montreal Canadiens under Frank Selke and Sam Pollock. That's interesting. Good choice. What was the second? Boston Celtics under Red Auerbach. No two winter sports teams ever won more than those two teams. And that's how he decided to build all his teams. Even at Providence College, that's how he did it.
Well, remember Montreal used to keep players down in the minors maybe a little bit too long in some cases. Well, go back to some of his Devils teams. I mean, putting guys in Albany and, Brendan Morrison, I guess, comes to mind.
How about Marty Berder in Utica?
You were going to get properly seasoned. And that was part of the philosophy that he borrowed from the Canadiens.
Hey, Jimmy, you know what they called that? Lou U.
Lou U. That's right. We've mentioned that before.
Lou U.
Yep. We talked to Billy Guerin about that before. Mike, going back, I want to just jump back. You talked about drama in Montreal. I totally agree. That's always kind of followed them there. And just because of the market it is. In that respect, how impressed have you been with the way Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes have orchestrated and executed their rebuild and kind of navigated through without too much drama?
Yeah, they've kept it pretty quiet. And what surprises me most is how patient fans have been and how fans have bought in. And that to me is, if not shocking, at least it's surprising.
Yeah.
There's way too much optimism in Montreal.
Strange, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the Montreal Canadiens with 24 Stanley Cups. Oh, they got a little better. Oh, they're getting that depth on defense. And Kirby Dach is going to be this and that. And, well, maybe Kirby Dach will be. But, everyone is bought in. At what point don't they buy in? I don't know. Maybe towards the end of the 24-25 season, if there is not a jump. Maybe the start of the 25-26 season. So I'm just stunned at how the level of forbearance we see in Montreal, because people say, okay, we notice the incremental progress and we see Slavkovsky developing into something, but developing into something and being a flat stud, it takes time. I mean, Pierre was talking about Guy Lafleur. It wasn't overnight for him either. Not that Slavkovsky will ever be Guy Lafleur, but it's just Montreal is very patient. And as the older I get, the less patient I become. And, hey, I don't want to be kind of limping around to see this team improve.
I hear. Pierre?
No, it's good. I'm just so grateful for Michael's time.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you in Toronto on Monday.
We'll do that.
You can say hello to Danielle for me. You are a fountain of knowledge. It's awesome. It's just awesome to spend time with you.
We appreciate you taking the time, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
Take care, Jimmy. Bye.
All right. That's Michael Farber joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. And, Pierre, sometimes we have these interviews where you just you enjoy the moment. Like he was saying we have to do with McDavid. That's what you have to do in an interview like that.
He's so gifted, Michael is. I've had the privilege of working with him. I told you I was interviewed by Michael once when I was a player in a different sport. And he's an amazing man.
He really is.
He's an amazing man. And he's not going to be the braggadocious father, but he's got a son who's a professor at a high-end university. He's got a daughter that is a journalist who was working and living in Moscow.
That's a great story about her and Ovi too, huh?
And she's an amazingly gifted young lady, and her writing skills are so elite. It's crazy. But Michael's writing skills are unbelievable.
Yeah. No, I like everything he says there. He makes great points. And it is like, I was watching that game. I love what he said, that he's urging fans to just enjoy this, because you never know when you're going to see greatness again in your lifetime like that. It doesn't happen too often. And to be able to see what we're seeing right now, Pierre, it's just something. It hit me hard last night. It really did.
But I like what he said too. He said, Jimmy, I'm glad you're getting a chance to live this in real time.
Yeah.
You don't have to look back at it. You're in it now.
I don't have to get stories from you or him about Bobby Orr. I'm seeing this in real time.
Yeah, you're seeing it in real time. And that's so he was 66 in Boston. My first game was 65 at Old Madison Square Garden. I went with my grandfather. I'll never forget that. It wasn't the new Madison Square, it was the old Madison Square Garden. Guys were pushing oil barrels to flood the rink. They had skates on. They were pushing. It was unbelievable. I'll never forget it. But I would tell you that having Michael on is just such a great perspective to listen. If you really listen to him, you can learn so much.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. It was something else, and I can see that our viewers loved it there too. Pierre, quickly, one thing I want to bring up before we will get to our sponsors and then to our questions. I didn't get to get your reaction on the Markstrom to Devils trade. This is one that we've been expecting for a while. It finally happened. What were your thoughts on the return for Calgary?
As soon as I heard it, I thought of you immediately because you were the first person to say, Pierre, you got to get on this for me because I think Markstrom's going to Jersey. And I knew that Colorado was in, so I wasn't sure where. And I said that to Jimmy just to be transparent. I said, check on Colorado, Jimmy, because I think they're in it too. I don't know what happened in either case, but clearly something happened in both cases because he wasn't moved. What I like for Tommy Fitz and for Sheldon Keefe in New Jersey now, the new coach, that's a good tandem with Markstrom and Jake Allen. It's a good tandem. And the thing that I like about it is there's going to be an entree point for Markstrom that not a lot of people are going to connect, and that is Markstrom was a goalie in Vancouver with Quinn Hughes. You got Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes playing in Jersey. That's an entree point for him.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It is. That's important for a goalie. Really important because they're different anyways. Just how they carry themselves. They're not always hanging with the guys. It's just not the nature of what they do. So I think that's important. And I think Jake got a lot of respect there. So Tommy's got that. My concern is that they get a problem or have a problem on defense.
Me too. That's where I was going to go.
That's my concern, Jimmy.
And I feel like they don't have enough of what Ball brought them. The guy that they gave up.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to go out and maybe find that somewhere else. I don't know if he thinks he has it coming through the system. I haven't seen that.
I know their system really well. But they don't.
So that's a move to look for maybe at the draft or sometime in the offseason is if he gets some grit back there on defense. They're going to need that and some size. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to our new sponsor first here, Betway. We'll tell you about that right now. And by the way, we'll get to last night. Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct, as I did last night, and go with Betway. Go on betway.com and scan the QR code right in front of you there to join the action. Must be 18 plus and play responsibly. And we're going to go, since we're kind of up against time here, I'm going to go talk about last night. So I think a lot of people's mouths must have dropped, and mine almost did as I said it when I picked the Edmonton Oilers. But sometimes you got a gut feeling. I just saw McDavid percolating. It's coming. And it came again. Another 4-point night for Connor McDavid there. Just what an amazing performance. And the Edmonton Oilers hit that money line if you took it as an underdog for plus 136. I don't have any picks today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some up in the next 48 hours. We'll give you some picks on Friday as we head into Game 6 on Friday night in Edmonton. But Pierre, just quickly on that game, you and I were texting in the beginning there, and the mutual feeling we had right away was how disjointed Florida appeared to start that game again. And I think, as the game went on, they did a better job of kind of reeling it in and getting it together. But if they're going to go into that place on Friday night, Pierre, which I don't know, they're going to have to really strap their roof down from blowing off. It's going to be rocking. And, right now, my God is to say this thing's going 7. But if you're Florida, what can you do right now to get that going from the get-go again, like they used to always do?
Got to make them uncomfortable. So I'll give you an example. Last night, Edmonton never was uncomfortable because Stuart Skinner early in the game came up with 2 huge saves. One was on Reinhart right early in the game. I'm going to say in the first 30 seconds, 40 seconds of the game.
I remember it.
The next one was on Ekblad, where he went from his right to his left and shut it down with his left hand with the glove, with the catching glove. If those 2 pucks go in, Edmonton's uncomfortable, and that game's probably over. Won't go in.
Nope.
And then Edmonton scores a shorthanded goal by Connor Brown. And then all of a sudden, it's not good. It's just, and then it's 2-0, and then it's 3-0. And Connor is jumping through the gym.
Oh, my gosh.
Like that play to Corey Perry. I don't care what generation you want to go back to. You can go to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. We don't have too many of our fans that can go back to the 40s. So let's keep it 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 to 2010, and then 2010 to 2020. Go to any one of those decades you want. We don't have too many guys that could have made that play.
No. And you know what? It goes back to the old adage that your coach used to always tell you, especially when you got a guy like Connor playing with you, keep your stick on the ice. He'll find you.
Corey Perry, and it couldn't have been to a better guy.
Oh, God, I was so happy for him.
He's living.
Yeah.
He's done it for years.
You know what I love, Pierre, too, after Connor scored his first goal there, when the camera caught him quickly. And, the other night he was a little more excited, a little more exuberant. He was dead serious in the zone. And he just looked at the bench like he gave them a nod like, we got them. We got them.
So in the last series against –
oh, boy.
No, you're right. That's really a good pickup, Jimmy. So let's go to the last series, okay? Talked about it on the eye test. And I said to you, he showed leadership when he says, no, I'm going to take that question.
Yep.
When they were talking about Darnell Nurse and they were talking about the defensive foibles of Edmonton. No, I'm taking that question. The next one, let's go to this series. We're going to drag them back to Edmonton. You got 2 major things coming out of this. You got leadership things. It had nothing to do with him playing.
Yep.
It has to do with him processing the moment.
Yeah.
That's leadership.
I know.
You get a player that can play like him athletically and then lead like he does.
Yep.
That's a high octane thing. And
it's another thing that, we talked about seeing things in real time. We are seeing a leader develop to a higher level in real time here, and it's amazing.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm so glad you brought it up because it's an important thing. Do I think that's going 7? I thought that if they lost last night, it was going to go 7, and I wasn't prepared to throw them under the bus last night. I thought Florida would win, but I said there is a chance because the way Florida's been playing, like you got to say that the Bobrovsky miss on the McDavid goal, like that can't go in.
No. It's not like him.
I can't go in, especially down low. I mean, his stick wasn't even
all up here right now, Pierre.
There's a lot there. So this goes back to, we talked about Connor saying a lot of smart things, Jimmy. How about the way Florida handled after Game 3 going into Game 4?
I mean, they were already planning the parade.
So I think that is, you saw Billy Zito last night after the game take the water bottle and chuck it. I think that's all that's all those moments built into one. And he said, I got to let some steam out here.
Yep.
And he did.
Yeah.
Now, some people are going to think, oh, that's great. He's showing emotion. He's being tough, and he's trying to drive his team to another level. When you're in the ownership box or the management box, the players aren't paying attention to that.
Yeah.
But the families are.
Oh, yeah.
And the fans are.
And the players are going to see it because it was all over social media.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
Yes, they are.
They're rattled right now. All right, let's go to our other wonderful sponsor here, TCS Customs and Logistics right now. I'm telling you, a lot of these production crews could use TCS Customs and Logistics getting dragged back to Edmonton. They should go over there right now and unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Let's get to your questions here on a Wednesday afternoon. What do we got? Marvin Matthews. What's up, Marvin? That PLD trade. I know what LA was thinking, but what was Washington thinking?
They're trying to hit a home run. They think they can rekindle him.
Mm-hmm.
They know that Dylan Strome is probably a top end 2, and Dubois in his best days is probably a top end 2. So they're going to try to do it by committee. You know, they lose Kuznetsov. Obviously, they're Richards, and he goes on waivers, and Carolina picks him up. And they don't have Nicky Backstrom, and so this probably tells you that what we already knew, Nicky Backstrom's probably done. So they just don't have enough. Hendricks Lapierre, I think, is going to be a real breakout player for them next year, which is really exciting for the Capitals. But I think what it does is it allows them a little bit more time to develop their players. And so they got to hope that Dubois is going to hit out of the park. But this is because they were really devoid of natural scoring center icemen.
Yeah, and you got to think, too. I mean, Dubois is going to be thinking to himself right now, all right, it's now or never for me. I gotta do this. I mean, I got to step up. How many times can this happen?
Contract, Jimmy, you have to look it up. I think his contract goes to 2030 or 2031.
Yep.
And it's a high-end deal. It's at a lot of – so, you know, he's probably got the safety net, which is fine. But you got – Michael Farber said it. You got to have professional pride if you want to play.
You do.
And I think after his exit meeting in L.A., he's probably having a great – and if he's not, shame on him, but he's probably having a great summer of training.
Yep.
And that's probably encouraging to Washington.
I think you're going to see a motivated Dubois next year. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, has doubt crept into the heads of the Florida Panthers? How does Paul Maurice deal with this if it has? Yes, I think it has, Ron. I did say to Pierre, too, it's funny you brought that up earlier today. Pierre and I were talking, and I said, look at Maurice right now. It's not the comical one-liners or fun he usually has with the media. He's tightened up a bit. So I think he's feeling it. They're all feeling it, but he's a veteran coach. I'm sure he's got ways to get through it. Pierre, you've been in these situations too as an assistant coach.
Yeah, you don't want to. So yesterday you asked me if you were Edmonton, what would you be saying? And I said, I'd be saying we made them uncomfortable in game 4. We're going to make them real uncomfortable in game 5. And they, after a kind of a tepid start, they did. Anytime you get a 3-0 lead on the road, you kind of put the other team up against the wall. They're in trouble and they know it. So I thought they did. They planted a seed of doubt, and now Florida's got to deal with that. So this comes down to, and this is where the one thing, when you don't have a lot of people that have been through it before, I know they were to the final last year, but nobody's really won there.
Yeah.
Their coach hasn't won. He's coached more games than anybody else. It's never won a cup. It's not a knock on Paul. Like, I really, how much I respect
it's
Paul.
Just facts. It's just facts.
But it's a real fact.
I know.
And so,
Yeah. I mean, I was getting in kind of going bantering back and forth with Bruins fans saying, if Gaudreau for some reason doesn't end up in San Jose, I'd be interested in him for the Bruins just because of he's been there. He's done it twice.
Well, and as we started the show, well done by Mike Greer.
Yep.
So it was a good day for San Jose.
Good stuff. All right, next question. Kathleen, we all know that the Stanley Cup is the only cup McDavid really wants, but even if the Oilers lose, I hope they win it all. Wouldn't McDavid be the front runner for the Conn Smythe? Well, according to Betway right now, he is, Kathleen, and I agree with you. I don't see how he doesn't get it right now. I really don't.
I'm with Kathleen 100%.
Yeah.
And look, that's not against Bobrovsky. There's nothing against Barkov. Nothing against any of the guys on Florida. Nothing against any of those guys.
Look at the rarefied air he's in right now.
He's at a whole other level.
Yeah.
Now, and good for him. It's awesome to watch.
It's really so fun. All right, next question. Alex Emanowski. So where's the market for Altmark for now? Colorado, Buffalo, Carolina, and then where?
Carolina. I think Carolina's in there big time.
Yep.
I know a lot of speculation for Colorado or for Buffalo. I get that.
Ottawa too.
Maybe Ottawa, I was just going to say.
Yep.
What about Toronto, Jimmy?
Do the Bruins want to do that?
I don't know.
If they do rival like that?
Do they want to put them in Carolina?
Well, you don't see them as much, but you can see them in the playoffs, yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. If Ottawa gets a legit goalie and Travis Green coaches the way I think he's capable of coaching, he's going to have to coach. He's going to have to coach the way I think I've seen him coach. But if there's a disconnect there too, that's a problem. But if they get a coach that can coach and they get a goalie that can goal, they could cause problems for Boston too.
Yep. What about Pierre? Here's one from out of left field, and I just say it because they've got so much cap space and they want to build the roster up and make an impact right away. Utah.
Be perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think people aren't recognized. They're going to be in on a lot of stuff that maybe we
where they were worried about money before. They're not worried about money now.
No, not at all.
They could become a cap team.
Yep. I really think
without taking other people's contracts to get to the floor, they could be a real cap team.
Yeah, those days are gone. So, all right, next question.
Yep.
Bill Van Vagel, honestly, what do you think will happen with Mitch Marner and the Leafs? I've heard reports it's more likely he signs an extension than waives his no trade clause. I've heard that too, Bill. Any prognostications? So
I'm going to say something that's probably not going to be well received. I think there's a lot of disinformation that's being flushed out on this whole Mitch Marner thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Both ways.
Yeah. From the players camp and the team. Yeah. Just so I guess, take everything with a little grain of salt. That's good advice. But
I would just say that. I don't know what they're going to choose to do. I know one thing. I think that young man's an amazing talent, like most people probably feel. There's been issues. Yeah, there for sure. There's been issues. 100% there have been issues. Careful of giving up on a guy that's still really young.
Yeah.
Michael talked about Guy Lafleur. I was there delivering the Montreal Star. It was a 20-year-old draft when Lafleur got drafted. It wasn't an 18. It was a 20-year-old draft.
Mm-hmm.
Forget that. And I remember delivering the paper and I'd read the sports page all the time, and people wanted him traded out of Montreal, Guy Lafleur, so badly because his first 2 years weren't good enough for what they're used to in Montreal.
Jeez.
And can you imagine? They were this close to doing it.
Wow. Yeah. Well.
And Sam Pollock said, "We're not listening to the media."
Yeah.
It's a Scotty Bowman line. You don't need them when you're winning, and they can't help you when you're losing.
Exactly. All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Question. Jimmy and Pierre, do you think Lou Lamoriello will step down after this season and will Waugh take over? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No, I think they're going to have to pull him out of there. That's it. God bless him. All right, next question. Sean Myers. Pierre, I felt the whole playoffs that Florida was being heavily overrated by everyone and they were being carried by goaltending. Do you feel like Florida's been batting over their weight? That's a good question.
It is a good question, and it's fair. My concern now for Florida, I'm seeing holes in their defense that I didn't see earlier in the playoffs. And we're talking about the stretch pass in particular and speed out of the stretch pass. It's hurting their defense.
Yep.
And watching the game last night, like everybody else that's a fan, I started wondering about the health of some of their defensemen. Like Montour didn't look right. He hasn't looked right in the last couple of games. So I wonder if he's not hurt. Forsling hasn't been nearly as demonstrative defensively as he was early. Maybe he's fatigued. Ekblad's been, playing so many minutes, and he's been turning the puck over a ton. So I'm watching that, and I'm going, okay. And then I'm looking at their last pairing, and I'm going, Kulikov has really struggled, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson's been up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking to myself, there might be a point where they're in trouble defensively. Now, I couldn't say that at the beginning of the playoff. I could not, but I could say it now.
I think that's a great observation. I almost would just to support that. I've noticed too, a lot of times the forwards have kind of bailed out the defensemen a couple times coming back and just, providing that extra support. So that's a good observation. All right, next question. 4F. Does Paul Maurice lose his job when Edmonton wins the cup? 4F. Come on, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here yet. But if Edmonton wins the cup, no, I do not think Paul Maurice would lose his job. I just don't. He brings him to the cup final 2 straight years.
His job.
No, there might be some players that have moved out though, but I don't think he'll lose his job. All right, next question. Marco Larabi, are we counting Byfield out as a potential center eventually? Nope.
No, not at all. I have Bart right now. I have the way I got their first 3 is Kopitar, Danault, and Alex Turcotte. And the only reason I have Turcotte in the 3 hole is because he was a first-round pick. He's a kid that left Wisconsin early. They want to give him an opportunity. I'm sure they want to give him an opportunity.
Yep.
But I also mentioned Tyler Madden. So
yeah, that's right. I always forget about him.
We've got some young guys in center, and Byfield's been such a good fit playing with Kopitar.
Yep.
It's such a good fit playing with Kopitar. So we'll see. And Adrian Kempe is a really good. That line is good.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. So I'm not discounting Byfield as a center, but I think right now they're probably going to try to give somebody else a shot and keep him Byfield, that is, with Kopitar and with Kempe.
All right, next question. Filterless Bear. Hey Pierre, given that Seneke is a good defensively, could he be moved to center next season in Oshawa?
I don't know.
Yeah. I will confess.
I don't even want to try to speculate on the junior stuff right now. It's just no.
All right, next question. Alex Emanowski. So what is the real deal with Dubois? Is it a character thing? Does he not love hockey? It has to be not good for LA to give up on him already. Well, I'm not going to speculate. I don't know.
But I'm going to say this. I'm comfortable saying this. He was a gross underachiever last year.
Yep. I think we can all agree on that.
And he was not a high achiever in Winnipeg.
No.
And I know he had problems with John Tortorella. I understand that in Columbus. I understand that. But I also know that John's a really good coach.
Mm-hmm.
He is a really good coach. So if you're a young player and you're having a problem because the head coach giving you a hard time, well, too bad. Get tough.
Yep. Yep. I agree. All right. Next question. John Smith could listen to Michael Farber all day. Yeah, he was great, John. Could Dubois fade away if it doesn't work right away in Washington? I feel like it's a swim or sink situation. Totally agree. I think Patrick Laine's right there too. Your thoughts? Totally agree, John.
We're on the same page with everything. I was asked on Montreal radio about speculation on Patrick Laine. I said I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yeah,
he's been through a lot, and I haven't been with the player. I don't know. How it went in the rehab situation. So I don't think it's appropriate to make comments on that. What I would say, though, there are 2 players that got traded for one another.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were really early picks. Mm-hmm. And they both started out their careers great. But for whatever reason, there's a major disconnect for both of them.
Yep. And, sooner or later, your chances run out. But I think – I think Laine will turn it around. I'm just confident. I like to be optimistic. So, all right, next question. Bill Van Vagel, will Joe Quenneville ever get back in the NHL, or has his ship sailed? In my opinion, it will take an organization with strong onions to hire him. Bill, you're absolutely right. We don't know. There's been some times already where I thought he would have been a candidate, but it hasn't happened yet.
Commissioner Bettman's already on the record saying he's not prepared to allow Stan Bowman or Joel Quenneville back in the league at this point, which is unfortunate, but I think you have to listen to Commissioner Bettman's ruling on this. So I think all the owners have been prepared for that. My take on it is Joel Quenneville is not getting hired by a GM. If Joel Quenneville gets hired by a team, he's getting hired by an owner that's prepared to fight to get him back into the league. No GM's going to do that. That's an ownership thing. That's a board of governors thing. That's an owner to a commissioner kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a GM to a commissioner. So that's who if he gets back in, he's getting hired by an owner. He's not getting hired by a GM.
And you would think an owner that's going to have to know and, get things in place for a PR situation too. I mean, they're going to get beat up by the media, and they'll know that. So they're going to have to prepare for that.
Yes,
So,
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Next question. State of survival. I feel like I'm underestimating Knobloch. He is slowly out-coaching some really good coaches.
I'm just going to I'm not disputing that survival, because I agree.
I think he's improved every series.
He has, and he's done a real good job, and I like how he delegates to his staff. He's really smart with that, especially as a younger coach. But I'm just going to throw that, and it's not his fault. He has the luxury of coaching one player that's at another level compared to every other player that's playing in this series.
Yeah.
So all I'm going to say is take that one player. When you're evaluating the coach, take that one player away and put it down.
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, will he make a difference without having this player? And I can tell you this. I saw it firsthand. Bob Johnson and Scotty Bowman had to overcome the loss of Mario Lemieux. Both of them did at different times. And they both found ways to do it. Now, was it easy? No. But both those teams went on to win cups. And those are two guys that have impeccable coaching records, Bob Johnson and Scotty Bowman. So I would be prepared to say, yeah, you can do it without a star player, but it's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Hard. It's hard. That's why this is my only thing, because having coached, I was part of a really good team and a not so good team and a really not so good team. So I've seen all the different levels you can be at. And the one thing I know is there are a lot of guys that have gotten huge reputations coaching in this league because they've had unbelievable players. And there are other guys who I think are actually better coaches that don't get a chance to work with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have nearly the same pedigree or reputation.
Pierre, is there a balance when you have, I mean, there's only one Connor McDavid, but let's just say when you have superstars like you had Mario Lemieux in Pittsburgh, is there a balance for the coaching staff to know when to let the team just follow that guy or to maybe do their own things to support, like finding that, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't lean too heavily on them, but you definitely got to lean on them.
Oh, yeah, you got to lean those. Yeah. So one of the things that Scotty was really good at is finding out, Marion, how long do you want to play?
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And then Mario would say, who's the other, like to me or to Barry Smith or to Rick Keogh, who's the other team guy that's going to be a top-end checker? What does he do?
Mm-hmm.
You tell him. All you do is give input. You don't tell him how to break it. You just tell him. And if he asks you another question, then you answer. With those guys, you don't get in their way. It's kind of like when you give a painter, the paint and the brush and the canvas, just get out of his way.
Yeah.
Let him paint. And if you don't like it, you made a mistake. But if you like it, you're right, because the creativity goes through the roof.
Yeah. It's kind of like when we have Scotty Bowman or Michael Farber on the show.
Yeah.
Let them go, and then you're going to find out wonderful information. So, all right, I think we got two more questions here. What do we got? 4F. If the cost is correct, did the Habs target Laney or Natchez?
I would say yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
I would
Natchez,
say Natchez is the one that I think.
Well, yeah, Pierre, you've been kind of on that from the get-go before anyone else, and now it seems they're definitely in the mix for him. So, all right, I think we got one more question. What do we got? Randy Workman. Question, Pierre, do you have a Badger Bob story? I still get emotional thinking of him here in Calgary.
So many. Badger, what Randy, what's great about Badger, he made everybody feel important. Whether you were the stick boy or whether you were the trainer or whether you were a scout that worked in the Midwest, it didn't matter. Badger would pick up the phone and call, how you doing today? And he'd always care about the people who were part of the group. He used every day in training camp, we'd always have a meeting, a coaching meeting in a suite at the Vista Hotel in Pittsburgh. You'd go on the road, and he'd always love to have first run movies. And he'd say, get me to whomever our travel person was, get me a room so we can show the players this movie. Or sometimes he'd look ahead when we were going to New York and he'd want to get tickets to a play. He believed it was all about family.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of good stories. One of my favorite ones was Mother's Day, 1991. We had just beaten the Bruins the night before to get to the Stanley Cup Final. And I was living in Pittsburgh at the time. I was living in the hotel in Pittsburgh. And Mrs. Johnson, Martha, who just passed away, and Bob called me up, and there were no cell phones then. And they said, what are you doing today? It's Mother's Day. And I said, well, I'm not doing much. I'm sitting in my room. I was actually going to go to the gym and go out and have some fun with the other guys, but they're like, we want you to come out for brunch with us. So there was a very famous restaurant in Pittsburgh called the Gandhi Dancer. It's still there. It's in South Station. So I went with them. We had such a good afternoon into the evening.
Yep.
And then we walked back to their condo that was right near the old Civic Arena. And then I walked back to my hotel. But I had such a good time with Badger and Martha that day. Awesome. It was one of those days. And I'll never forget, Martha, they said to me, did you call your mother? Did you call your – I said, yeah. Mrs. Johnson, I called my mom. Don't worry. I did.
Pierre, that's great you bring it up about him wanting to have that family culture too, because I'll tell you, my 23 years covering this game, when I first started off, I didn't see that as much around teams, in the early 2000s. But as it's gone on, I've seen more teams realize and kind of go back to, that's how we need to have it here. That's the atmosphere we need. And it's become an emphasis amongst plenty of NHL.
One of the great things they've done in the league is the development camps.
Yeah.
Kids, how you want them to be when they get to your organization.
Mm-hmm. Not just as a player.
No. How you carry yourself as a person. What are the do's and don'ts? How do you prepare yourself eating-wise, nutrition-wise? How do you prepare yourself conditioning-wise? Mm-hmm. How do you prepare yourself in the classroom? I mean, my son's been to 2 of them. He's going to a 3rd this year. He's been twice in Minnesota. He's going to Washington this year. And it's an invaluable exercise.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing what they teach. It's something that I know it's pretty costly to do it, but it pays off down the road. It really does. Yeah,
for sure. Great stuff. All right. We want to thank our amazing guest, another Hall of Fame guest here on the Eye Test, Michael Farber, joining us here. That was amazing, Pierre, huh?
Yeah, it was great. Michael's special. He's special.
Yep. And we'll thank our production crew in Montreal. Thanks to all our viewers and listeners and for all your questions. And I want to remind everybody, now I am a week away. A week from now, I'll be sitting in Logan Airport in Boston, getting ready to take off for Las Vegas, headed out there for the NHL Draft 94, and look at that coverage that the Sick Podcast Network is going to have, presented to you by Betway. You'll see the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro broadcasting live from Vegas. You'll see the Sick Podcast Recruits Draftcast broadcasting from Vegas. And, of course, the Eye Test here with Pierre and me as well, coming to you live from Vegas. So thanks to our amazing staff that's helping us set this up. As we get more details, we will reveal them. We're hoping to close in on a location for those live broadcasts by the end of this week, and we'll let you know when we have it. So really excited about that. I'm bummed you won't be with us, Pierre, but you'll be with us in spirit.
Well, you know why. Why don't you tell people why I'm not?
I know why. It's a very great reason, and I admire it. Pierre, as he's mentioned a couple times, he trains a bunch of potential NHL players, potential draft picks, already drafted players, and a lot of them are heading off because you remember the draft's so late, it's going to go right into July 1st into free agency. And for many NHL teams on that same day of free agency beginning will be their development camps. As he mentioned, his son's going to Washington. Pierre's got a bunch of those players going there. So they got to be ready to go. And Pierre's going to stick back here in Boston, but he'll be joining us remotely from here. So don't worry, Pierre will be on the show. We're going to line up some great guests as well. So looking forward to that out in Las Vegas. For Pierre McGuire, I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.